What would give you more happiness, more fulfillment, more peace? What would you like? What do you, oh, Anne has something to say. Anne, what do you have to say?
The first thing that came to mind when you asked that question was connection.
Connection.
Mm.
Before you all arrived, Anne and I were just on here kind of giggling together. Connection.
Because I've been feeling really anxious, and one of the side effects from that is that I just don't feel like I'm a part of anything. I don't belong anywhere.
When we hear Anne say that, not feeling connection, sense of not belonging, what's that like in your system? And can you find, oops, just a minute. This that longs for connection in you as well. This that longs for connection, for connectedness. Where does that show up, this longing for connection? Do you feel it? Is there an emptiness here that yearns? Or is it more like a voice? Gosh, I really love belonging. When I see my friend Milo show up here, I find this sense of connectedness with life because he has a new daughter, Leela, who just arrived on the planet. He said he might be running in and out or might have to leave at any time, but it's a treat to have him with us. What about that connectedness? This new life has arrived on the planet. We touch a connectedness with that. So I think what I'd like to do today, because we've got, for us, a really large group, is I'd love to go around quickly and do this a little differently and just ask each of us, what do we want from today? Because I also have something special that Milo and I did yesterday that I wanted to share and see how it resonated and how if it was helpful for us. So if we could do that, to go around and just, what is it that you'd like in our hour and a half together? Maybe just to listen to your system, to hear that what arises, what would be lovely for you? What would be fulfilling for your parts? Before I do that, I'm just going to take a minute to do my housekeeping as I've closed the door and it'll be the 11 of us together. And just as always, to say that my work is as a mediator. I'm not a psychotherapist. And so this is not the IFS of psychotherapy. For me, it's friends and colleagues exploring. And if everybody's good with that and good to be responsible for your own journey, if I could get a thumbs up, please. Thanks. And as always, I've got the recording button on so that I can share this with those who couldn't make it, that are interested. But only my video will ever be shared, only my square. However, the audio of your participation could be shared. And so at the end today, if there's ever anything that you share that you're like, oh, I'm not so comfortable with that, just stay and let me know, and I'll go delete, delete, delete. And if everybody's good with that, if I could get a thumbs up from you, please. Wonderful. Let's if we could go around now and just hear from each of us, and we try to keep this kind of short and fast because there's so much we're going into today that we have the potential with this, with you here. Let's start with Milo. What would you like today?
Well, I know yeah, I know what's on the agenda. I'm really excited about the different doorways that you're gonna open up for us today, Sid.
Thank you, Milo.
Thank you. It's a joy to be here.
Hey, Rick, I'm just going to kind of go in the order that everybody's on my screen. Then I'll try when we go around a little later and we go around to everybody, I'll try to stay in the same order to make it easy. And hey, Rick.
Hello, hey, Sid. Just very nice to be here. Yeah. My essence really craves connection, of which I have very little. And I just feel like I've had parts pushing away connection my entire life. So I enjoyed how you introduced things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. You will find that too, like a curiosity. Wow, we have Rick here today. What gifts is he bringing for all of us? Hey, Debbie.
Yeah, nice being here. Yeah, I would say connection, and it doesn't necessarily, for me, it could be also nonverbal, just picking up on the energy of the group.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So how about that? How do we find connection that we hear Anne, Rick, and Debbie speak of? How do you know it? And Debbie speaks of nonverbal connection. And can we discern the connection that happens in experience and the connectedness that's causeless? How does that play in you? Hey, David.
Yo, yeah, I'm feeling connected, but I'm really in touch with a part that's feeling inadequate, a part that doesn't know how to uh, be self and parts. Wants to solve that question, fill that space of not knowing how.
Wow. Thank you. When we hear David say that, how does that translate in your system? Part that doesn't know how to be self in parts. How does that translate? Like for me, it's a sense of this causeless fulfillment of self, this okayness that's here, this peace, this love that's here, and simultaneously the fullness of our parts, have wants, have desires and aversions, that all to be here. Thanks, David. Hey, Zoe, who's taking this out in the world.
Hi, everybody. My parts are looking for an anchor. They want to, I don't know, they want to dive down into the deep and get rooted. And I am looking for spaciousness. I've been intensely focused on something, and so I'm looking to expand into that spaciousness of choices and options, and just kind of all round vision, as opposed to this. Yeah.
Thank you. So how about that? When we all feel into our parts, into ourselves, about what we want, what fulfillment looks like, what a remedy looks like, what's a solution, what it looks like as we hear Zoe describe in her system what comes to the surface. It's of wanting to be deeply rooted, and also a spaciousness. And you might have a different word for that. She speaks of choice, freedom. Can you find the yearning for that or your version in your system? Thank you, Zoe. Inga, what do you want from today?
I asked my parts, I looked inside, and there are parts who are saying, I want to be seen. Parts want to be seen and accepted. And there's certainly a want for connection. I heard that too, but it's also this, yeah, I want acceptance and a safe space.
Thank you. How about that for all of us as we hear what Inga's system's yearning for, what her parts are yearning for? Acceptance, to be seen, safe space. Do you have parts that long for that as well? To be seen, acceptance, safe space. Hey, thanks, Inga. Hey, Paul, welcome back.
Hi. Be delighted to experience the realm of existence beyond thought. You know, like there's the thing about out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing. There is a field. I'll meet you there. So usually I like to be or pretend to be beyond the dualities of things like good and bad. But nevertheless, I'll say number two that I would like is to experience my essential goodness.
Beautiful. Thank you. So how does your system translate what you just heard from Paul? You have to know something that's beyond good and bad, beyond thought. What is that in your system? As it yearns for that, can you find that yearning? And then Paul's second kind of wish was for to know this essential goodness, to be with that, his essential goodness. And here's the question, are they different? This that's beyond thought, beyond good and bad, and essential goodness. Are those two different things? How does that play in you? And can you notice your parts that have the same yearning in your system? And as we play this game together, just notice if there's an intimacy with each of us as we're sharing. Like, I can find that. Like, gosh, what Paul's been sharing, I love that. I love the Rumi's field. I love that. I want that. Notice that if we can find an intimacy with each sharing, and if find that it's speaking to me. Because now we're about to hear from Kathleen. Kathleen, what do you want?
I know, I think it's similar to what everybody wants of me. I might ask it in different ways, but today I'm really curious about my parts of wanting control and not wanting to take control. And how do you play with that? It's because, because that's the whole thing about you don't have any control, life just happens and life lives you. It's like, but also you're here and you wake up, you have to make decisions. How do you do that? So yeah, and plus I have this thing about control, not control, and I feel like control gets a bad rap in spiritual circles. So, but I want to play with it because I realize how freeing that would be if I didn't feel I needed to take control. So
Thank you. How about that? Can we all really hear that? Can we relate to it? as Kathleen says, parts that, hey, life, I want to have control. Parts of us that really yearn for a sense of control. And you might have a different word for control. What's control for you? Is it safety? Is it okayness? Is it ease? Parts that are yearning for control. And also perhaps parts that are like, gosh, I don't want to do that anymore. I want it to be easy. I just want to let go. Can you find that polarity in your system? And what's each of those yearning for? The one that wants control and the one that wants just the ease to let go. Okay, we've heard from Anne, who opened this all up for us with connectedness. Then we have Jack as our last one. Jack, what's here?
I'm looking for a double today. I'm looking for, maybe you'll help me do this today, looking for the underlying qualities of the part that I may be misinterpreting or maybe somewhat culturally biased against the way some of my parts are. So like there might be a really angry part that I'm afraid of. I don't want to concentrate on the fear. I want to concentrate on the angry part. Let's say that, right? And then after I feel like I've got to that sort of essential, what the part is really all about, right? Not something that's covering it up to protect me, right? Then I just want to relax with whatever that is in sort of a non-dual headless space and see if it heals it. So that's sort of that double realization of what it is, and then letting the authentic one heal. That's what I'm looking for today.
Beautiful. So how do we all relate to what Jack just shared? Like Inga spoke about her system, her parts that just wanted to be seen, wanted to be seen. And I'm hearing some of that in Jack, the sense of to really see the parts and hear them and kind of get beyond biases or limitations in hearing or preferences so that we can fully, intimately see, hear, know what's arising in us. And in that intimacy, what then happens? Jack speaks of like letting the parts relax in this. And the healing, the welcoming that can occur. Can we all find that parts, can we all find parts of us that light up when we hear Jack describe that? It's like, yes. So what Milo and I were pointing to is he and I spent half the day yesterday with a friend and colleague of ours named Anna-Lisa Adelberg. And she speaks about these qualities of beingness, and she just has a different map for it. And it's very visceral and experiential. And my thought is, she divides these doorways of self into just 7 doorways. And they're doorways for knowing this fulfillment, knowing this okayness, knowing this peace. They're expressions of what we've been speaking of. And they're also remedies for what our parts are longing for. Like, what is the remedy when David speaks of, I want a solution? And for me, this is just kind of fun, taking different, Jack and I play with this a lot with different constructs, different ways of knowing beingness. So she calls these the 7 awakened qualities. So I'd like to take us through this. But as I take us through, my curiosity for each of you is which doorway is easiest for you? Is it more emptiness or more fullness, more love or more stillness. Because what we're interested in is this, letting our unique system get to know and become more intimate with self. And so if it's helpful to close your eyes, it won't be too long, 5-10 minutes, I think. But as we go in, just remember the yearning that you have of what you want, what your parts want. And as we heard, the yearnings, the wants of each of us, of your friends here today, and if your parts resonated. So the first of these 7 categories of air, of the air. This spaciousness, this openness, this that's always here, the air. What is air for you? Is it that space of choice? Is it a boundlessness? Is it a lightness? Is it an emptiness? What does it feel like? What's the somatic experience of this air, the sky? For some of us, it's the sky. And what are your parts? You find parts that might be yearning for something there in that openness, that spaciousness. The next category of the 7 is water. It's water. For some, it's a sense of flow. Because we have an image of like the ocean, the infinite ocean or a river. Water as the ultimate feminine, as this love, as this compassion, as a warmth, as an interconnectedness of water. Everything is of this water, of this flow, of this ease. What's that like to experience in your body? This flow, this ease, this warmth, this compassion, this love. The ultimate, the maternal. What's that like for your parts? Do you find you have parts that yearn for this? Oh, this is what I want. When we speak of acceptance and being seen, is it from the maternal? Is it from this flow, this warmth, this love? What's that like for your parts? Our next category is tree. And this is the masculine. This is a sense of discernment, strength, clarity. For some of us with tree, there's a sense of that like the hand in front of the heart, up and down. It's like heaven and earth from the 7th chakra to the 1st. It's strength, the clarity. It's the masculine. It's the father. It's okayness. It's clarity. What does that feel like? How do you know this in your system? This quality of self, this collection of self qualities, this boundless masculine that just holds the space. I got it. There's okayness here. There's strength here. And what's this like for your parts as they're met by qualities of self that are this in this category of tree? Our fourth category is fire. What is fire for you as boundless self? As this causeless qualities of your beingness? What is fire? Can you find a dynamic aliveness here? It's the meeting of this awareness with the aliveness. It's just that just self-liberates. In contrast to a sitting meditation, this would be movement and dance. Fire. In India, they might speak of this as Shiva and Shakti. Shakti. This aliveness, this fire. What's that like to know that quality of causeless being in your system? And what's this like for your parts? Do we have parts that are yearning for this degree of presence, of immanence, of aliveness, of fire? And what's it like for your parts to be met by this? What's that like? And as we go through these, which of these are most accessible to you as your beingness, to open us up to this boundless, causeless self, to beingness, to causeless okayness, to fulfillment? Which of these seem most accessible as we continue? And notice your parts. Which ones are finding fulfillment or a sense of home or a sense of remedy in these? So far, we've had air, water, tree, and fire. What's this like in you? And our fifth category is earth. Earth, groundedness, a dropping in to depth and deepening, a blackness, form and emptiness. As we drop in, as we rest on this earth, it is in us as well, this earth as what we are. This density, this depth. For some, it's the lower chakras as a vibration. How do you know this is a vibration? This earth. And what's that like to be this? And what's it like for your parts? Do your parts find stability, solidness, okayness, peace here? Earth. We have two more. These are shorter. And as we go, especially to these next ones, I don't understand them so well. This is what I get. Your next one is called realm. It's the idea of what's here when we go beyond space and time. Where are you now? And you find that you are here. There's just here. This is the here and now. The here and now for our system. Like, where are you? Can you find here? In contrast, can you hear there? The sense of there or space as a concept. There's just here. What's that like? What do you find here? What's that like in your body? Here. Here. What's that like for your parts? And then when are you? When are you? Can you find, well, it's, or what time is it? Oh, it's now. Can you find that just now? And the idea of time, past and future as a concept, there's just now. And what's here in this here and now? What are the qualities of that? Is there any lack in here and now? What's the somatic experience of now, of here? And what's that like for your parts? Can your parts find some remedy, some relief? Can they find something? Can they find home in this here and now? Does it offer them something? And this last one, our seventh one, she calls crystal. And this is just a sense of knowing. Of knowing. But knowing, just as Paul was speaking of, beyond thought. This is a knowing that is beyond thought. This is a knowing that's just here. A boundless knowing. For some, there's a transparency in this knowing. What's that like? What's the somatic experience of just this knowing? What's this like for your part? Do they find some reassurance? Do they find some home here, some sense of rest in this knowing? So in these 7 doorways of self, these 7 doorways, which one's most accessible for you, for your system? Or which one's always here or most commonly here for you? The sense of air, the spaciousness of sky, water, this flow, this feminine, this nurture, this interconnectedness. Tree, this masculine, this discernment, this heaven and earth. Fire, this co-arising of awareness and aliveness. Earth, this depth, this groundedness, stability. Realm, this here and now, or crystal, this knowing. And last question is, what do your parts yearn for? What do your parts yearn for? And as we notice our parts, what's here now? What flavors of fulfillment are here now? Perhaps in these 7 categories that can give your parts a sense of okayness, fulfillment, home, that home is here, that can help your parts get to know that home is here in your intrinsic nature. And just gently, as we come back together, See if your eyes can open, but without looking, where there's just a receiving, where you just continue to be this space and this gentleness, and just that you're not alone. There's this connectedness here. Perhaps we are the Rumi's field. We are this space beyond right and wrong. We are this goodness. We are this connectedness. So as we come back together, that was a lot, and apologies. I thought it was going to be shorter, but it was longer. And let's go around, and I'd love to hear, what was this like for you? And maybe there's an understanding part, like, Sid, are you crazy? That was a whole lot. I could only, I'm only remembering 2 of them, or it's nothing needs to be understood. The only thing we're interested in is, what's your experience? What's here now for you? Because ultimately, we're really just interested in your parts and how self is showing up for you. So we're just going to go around and explore and just kind of celebrate each of us. Get to celebrate. We're just celebrating you. Even if, Sid, why did you bring that into this group? That was not helpful. That was just a bunch of concepts. That's great. And I'm going to try to do the same. Try to do the same order again. But maybe before we start the order, if there's someone that has something, I want to go to Milo. We'll go to Milo because might have to leave soon. Why don't we start with Milo, and then we'll see if anyone's bubbling, and if not, we'll do the same order. Hey, Milo.
Hey, thank you for that journey. Is there a prompt we're answering?
Yeah, it's like, what was that for you? Did you find that there was a door that was like, well, that's my default door. That's the door, the sense of this water, this flow, this feminine that my system likes best. Or, I mean, that's one prompt. Another one is like, how was it for your parts? Were there parts that were really liking some of these, or was it just a conceptual mess? It's just like, what's arising in Milo?
Yeah, so I think I knew better than to try to conceptualize it already, because I have, and I know that that's sort of like a dead end street, it just takes you out of it. So I just try to see what happens to my system as I'm allowing, your pointers to land and sink in. And I can't really say that my parts react to it, because I think in order to receive that, I am sort of already in that space of awareness, looking for a deeper doorway, a doorway into something, for sinking in. And so there's not much commentary, but I'm just noticing that there's like an inclination to certain pointings just feel more natural. So that spaciousness of air, for instance, is something that that's probably my default, where I can even glimpse in the space in my room, and it sort of reminds me that I am that space. And that just immediately brings me out of the small mind. There's something about that knowing of tree that I can sort of lean back into. There's almost like breadcrumbs, of knowing that start out as conceptual knowing because I know, and then there's like a falling through that knowing into a felt sense that I know that I am.
Milo, just for all of us, as we hear Milo speak of this, where's it going for you? If you're new with us, the idea is like that as Milo speaks, of course, we're enjoying his system, but how is he pointing to what's happening inside us with our parts and self? And perhaps he just took this a little deeper for us, because he said this line, I am that space. like as we speak of these qualities of self or these categories in this example of like tree, air, water, are we aware of this? Are we aware of the spaciousness, the flow? Am I aware of it, or am I aware as it? Am I knowing myself as this flow, as this spaciousness, as this clarity? It's really, because so much of this game is intimacy with and eventually as self, to get to know this. So are you aware of, or are you aware as? What else you got to bring this together, Milo? Anything else?
I just have one comment on realm, which I know is sort of for both of us, it's not our home base. But the way that I understood it, the way that it's sort of settled here in my system is that it's almost a multi-dimensional aspect, you know, of clear seeing, or perhaps bringing to mind whatever, you know, Jesus, Christ consciousness, you know, and that can be a doorway of just imagining a being of light or whatever, and then that sort of obviously, you know, pushes you out of your small frame again. That's the only thing that I noticed. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Milo. What about that? What's the talking about doorways that Milo just shared, and he brought in Jesus, or you know, it's something that you're devoted to, or it's some figure or symbol. Can we know how they all can be doorways for us into our nature, into this beingness, this causeless fulfillment? Milo used the word I don't know what to do with when he said multidimensional. I don't know what to do with that, but some of us. But thank you, Milo. But I love the idea. Like it's the only limit is our imagination for these doorways for each of us. All right, well, we'll just keep going. I'm going to go back to where we began with. But before we go to Anne, is there anything that would like to but I've got something bubbling, said there's something I'd like to share. Anything that would like to be shared? We're doing so much here.
I had just one thing coming up. You said doorways. It's just something that came up for me a while ago. Is this? I had this experience that it seems like almost everything can be a doorway. I mean, literally everything. But there are certainly doorways that are more accessible or easier to use or to access. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Like, which ones are the easiest ones for us to access for each of us? What doorways? For some of us, it's more somatic. For others, it's more going out into the space. What is it for you? Anything else bubbling before we go to Anne? Anne, how's it going? And how are we doing with the connectedness? Because part of my aspiration is that we have this beautiful container of our friends, and that there is a connectedness, a safety, a sense of care and love and fascination with each of us. How's it going there?
Well, my parts are struggling with each other. There's a part of me that felt like I had to write everything down that she said, because otherwise I wouldn't get it. I didn't have as much trust in myself as Milo had, that I could just listen and let these things land for me. And there's a comparing part, and there's a part that that also feels like air, but also water. Air and water are the doorways that make the most that I feel somatically. Like when I'm painting, I feel flow. And when when I'm relaxed, I feel spaciousness. But it's really hard for me to relax. So yeah, I just feel like I have all these parts in conflict. That's what's going on with me.
So what's that like for all of us as we hear Anne's system? The parts in conflict. Parts like, gosh, I really felt like I needed to write this all down. Not trusting, and comparing. And then we hear her talk about the doorways that are most open for her, this water, the flow that she knows through art, and the spaciousness of air. This is where we can go so subtle together. How close are we with what Anne's describing with her system? Is there a fascination and intimacy with, like, wow, I know everything she's sharing so well in me? And the reason we do this game this way is if we can really appreciate Anne's system, we can really have an intimacy and love for how life is moving in her system with these parts. It's this lovely way to fall in love with our own systems, because it's easier to have the gift of Anne sharing and have it out there. How intimate can you be? How much can you relate to everything she's sharing? Like, are you so bummed out that there are 11 of us here that we can't spend the next hour, the next 45 minutes just being with Anne's system? How are your parts doing, Anne? How's it going?
I don't know, just listening. I mean, one of the reasons that I'm here is to listen to other people and see how my parts respond or react. It's not they're really reactive, my parts.
Yeah.
Right now. So that's helpful in that I get a lot of I am aware of how stressed out my parts get.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know, I can't finish that.
Beautiful. So what about this for all of us? As we hear Anne describe her parts, there's stress here. There's these kind of number of parts, and there's some loudness in the parts. Maybe there's a feeling of contraction. Is there a problem here? Would Anne's system be better if she was just experiencing the spaciousness of air or the flow of water, or she was in the space that she's in sometimes as an artist where there's just that ease and flow? Notice if you have a part that says, well, maybe she'll find some relief and maybe something could be better than what is. See if you can find if there's a part like that in your system, because we'll probably have someone here that maybe it'll be Paul that'll describe just well, I've transcended like right and wrong, and I'm just in this bliss of being. And we might have a thought that, well, that's better, that's preferable than where Anne is. And see if we can notice that part. See if you can notice that as a part, because often we confuse that with ourselves. Because What we're playing with here is what some of these facilitators call the pathless path. And it's just finding the beauty and perfection in us just as we are, in what's here now. As we hear the innocence of her parts, as we hear the innocence of our parts, can we really fall in love with our parts just the way they are, with Anne's parts just the way they are, and even our part that might, like this, would prefer Paul's Rumi's field beyond right doing and wrong doing. Maybe the bliss of that to the contraction. But is the contraction a problem? Is the stress a problem? And what makes it a problem? Can you find the part that makes it a problem, that says it prefers something different? Any final words, Anne? Because I'm also noticing this is a big group and I gotta get to I want everybody to have 45 minutes. Any final words, Anne?
Well, I'm kind of surprised that you didn't pass over me already. Yeah, I'm just learning about this too. I'm new to IFS, so I'll do what I can to be here.
Thank you. How did you do in receiving the gifts of Anne's sharing? How much were you able to receive? How much were you able to receive? And notice any parts that might have obscured it. Not that they're wrong, we just notice it. Before we go, we're going to go to Rick next here. And as we go to Rick, before we go, this is a lot. This is a lot. And parts might be, this is exhausting. And Sid, you're asking us to be intimate with everything. And just how are you? What's here now? How are you? And just notice your parts that are here. Maybe it's a tired part. Maybe it's like, gosh, that was amazing with Anne. Or I love what Milo said. Just notice the parts that are here. And then as we ask you, how are you? And then there's self that's here. Then there's beingness. What qualities of beingness are here? Is there some rest? Is there some flow? Is there some ease? Hey, Rick, what's happening?
Hello, hey, yep, hey, thank you so much, Anne. Appreciate this sharing. When you ask a question like that, obviously, a part of me that has to protect and make me look sane and able to answer questions comes up and starts thinking of, the most strategically correct thing, which really is not, which can certainly thank that part for, but is not really always as honest as what is lying underneath. And with that, comes another part that just goes blank. So I do tend to move towards to air and spaciousness, if only to kind of give a little bit of space between myself and all those all my mental activity, and try to move that into the kind of into the heart space, and which is to me, recognizing that there, or being told that there is something within my heart space, which I think is perhaps that crystal area where I am something beyond all these thoughts, and
Rick, let me invite everybody. Let me just check in to make sure. Let me just see how everybody's doing with this, because there's these gifts that you're sharing with us before we lose it, before we lose the path here that of what you're sharing. This, when we hear Rick speak of parts, a protector part, that's kind of strategic because we're, they say public speaking is what scares us most. We're like sharing a part that's okay. What am I going to say? Be strategic. What am I going to say? I don't want to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Can we all relate to that part? Can we all find that expression in us? And as we hear Rick describe it, do we not find an endearment with that part? Can we find an endearment with it? It's like, oh, wow. Isn't it beautiful that he has that part that's kind of taking care of everything? I got it. I'm going to make sure you look good. You know what you're talking about. And as we find that endearment with the part in Rick, see if we can find it, that endearment with that part within ourselves. An endearment with it. And then Rick speaks of a blankness. And then there's just a blankness. What's your version of blankness? Is the blankness is itself? Is it just emptiness? Or is it more in IFS we call firefighter, something that just kind of takes us away, gives us relief? Kind of, okay, blank. I'm just going to kind of get away, get some space here. What's that blankness? And then Rick also describes like his system really appreciates the air, the spaciousness, that it gives some relief from the busyness of the parts. And lastly, the sense he describes the enjoyment of heart and of getting beyond, this sense of getting beyond the thoughts. Gosh, this is where it's so difficult being in this role of facilitator, because I'd like to spend like an hour with Rick, with what Rick's sharing and where he's going, but I'm just wanting us to get around, make sure we have time for everybody. And Rick, can I come back to you now for like, could you give us some final words and bringing it together for us with what's here?
Um, just trying to accept what is, and just, having learned to bring a little bit of space in, through various means.
Thank you. Thank
Is-
you. So how about that? Because that
Thank you, everyone.
was really powerful what you just said. The sense of trying to accept what is. As each of us hear that, where do you go? And David's laughing. Can you find parts that have that as agenda? Like, I know these spiritual teachers say it's just about accepting what is, and parts that are working on that, right? And then can you also find that this beingness, this openness that we are, that it's also our very nature, this acceptance and welcoming of what is? Can you find both of those as the part version and the self version? So good. Thank you, Rick. Debbie.
Yeah. Hi. I think it's so. Yeah, I'm so happy. I feel so grateful you did that experience, guiding us through all those realms, or not realms, doorways. I think Earth I really resonated with. And it's interesting because on my own, I think I even talked about it maybe yesterday, but I don't know, not sure. It's like I just knew my parts really needed stability and like for me it's and that stability goes along with silence or quiet and being grounded. So I'm just like, yay. I did this before you even did this exercise. And yeah, I just like, oh, like I think I have a lot of air inside me naturally, and I can go, it becomes overwhelming for my parts. So it's the earth, and maybe, and also I noticed that, like, for me in my system, it kind of changes, like season wise, like come I'm like a bird or something. So come like right now it seems earth to me, that resonates the most. And then like maybe like in the fall it might be more air. Like I want to fly. So it's cool. I really like that. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Debbie. How do we relate to what Debbie's sharing? It's this yearning for earth, stability, silence, quiet, groundedness. But then sometimes it's very appealing, and other times, no, we find our parts are yearning for a different expression, different sense of fulfillment of home. Even the air that she says sometimes is overwhelming, sometimes there's a yearning for that spaciousness. And we relate to that. And again, which of our parts, he knows what parts are like when she spoke of earth. We're like, yes, yes. We have parts that were like, yes, just what Debbie's saying. Yes, exactly. And you also have parts that are like, kind of have some aversion to some of these. Maybe maybe to the air as Debbie was describing. We relate to that. Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, and I just was curious about what was that? The realm. Was that realm? Realm? Yeah, I was. My sense. I don't know. Tell me. Is and I do kind of crave that too. It's kind of like an altered state. Would that be realm? Altered state of consciousness.
I say let's go with that. Let's go with that.
I don't know why I'm thinking that, but sometimes I do kind of like go, yeah, I just want to be here and now and just like, yeah, yeah. So
Beautiful.
thank you.
Thank you. Just want to be here and now. I don't
Yeah.
find that or find parts in us that are like that with what Debbie just said. Yearn just for that, just here now. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
All right, David, what's going on there?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go to two things. When Anne spoke, I mean, I'll preface this by saying a number of people said that they came with an interest in connection. I did not come with that. But when Anne spoke, or starting with when Anne spoke, my heart just took flight that she was able to speak so, I don't know, just filled with compassion and connection. So then the connection just like exploded, and everything that everybody said from then on is just like, yes, yes, I hear that. I am that. I hear that. I am that. This is amazing to me. And so that was number one. And I got that throughout. And then the second thing was, I had said that what was it? There was a part that was looking for, that was seeking the ability to know and be both self and parts. And Sid, as we were going through this 7 doorways deal, which I thought was really cool, and I was there, mentally, of like trying to write it down and stuff, and then but just listening to it, it was like, so I felt like I related, like I experienced all of them, some more than others, and they were all answers to that which I came for. To know together, how to know together self and parts. It's like, wow, who planned this? I came with the question that was all there. That was like really, really kind of, yeah. So that was really kind of wonderful. Yes, I'll also say that some of the, I'm just thinking, for example, of one of the doorways, the tree, that seemed like fresh. I related to it, but it was new. I hadn't seen that. And I had this feeling as a tree is like the joining of the heaven and the earth, the roots in the earth and the stretching up into the sky. And anyway, so each of the doorways really was resonant for me, and some because they were familiar, and some because like, wow, I never saw that before, but yeah, that's real. So thank you, all of you. That's all I got for the moment. That was enough. That was great.
Thank you, David. What's that for all of us as we hear David sharing the resonance of his system? What gifts are you receiving from David? How can you relate to everything he said, or be curious about, or close with what he said? And how about what he shared about Anne, what Anne's sharing? That this was Anne who might have thought she was just sharing about her experience that was happening inside of her, and how that opened up this connectedness. Can we connect to that as we're sharing? Well, they're just sharing about my parts. I'm just sharing about self here. How it can resonate with all of us in this connectedness. All right, again, this is a lot, and we're just going to keep going because we've got Zoe and Inga and Paul and Kathleen and Jack, and wow, this is going to be a whole lot of richness. Just before we go there, again, how are you? Just notice, how are you? Just the parts that are arising in you, especially any ones that are saying that are comparing, or any shoulds that are coming up. We just notice those, and it's like, oh, wow, it's trying to take care of me. We just notice those comparing, those shoulds, or I should understand this better, whatever. It's just another part. And then before we go to Zoe again, Anne, is there anything there you'd like to share? I'm just wanting everyone to feel safe and connected and cared for here. Anything that's there for you?
Well, I was just thinking that when it was Paul who just spoke,
David.
David, David, yeah, I was happy that I could be a catalyst for connection, but also I thought, there's a part of me that thought I go blank also sometime. I identified with that. And there's a part of me that thought, I have to speak my pain so that, and put myself at the bottom of the heap all the time. I do this in conversations with people too, and usually people don't respond with compassion.
Yeah.
So thank you, David, and also and there's a part of me that's saying, get with it, Anne. You don't, I don't know, there's something wrong with the way you present yourself. So
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. What's the gift in what Anne just shared for all of us as she's sharing her vulnerability? And she shares the difficulties that sometimes come in life from speaking, from sharing these vulnerabilities. But then for us, as she shares the vulnerabilities, do you find the deepening of the connectedness, the love that's there, the resonance? And what's it like for your parts? As we see Anne's vulnerability, she's speaking for her vulnerable parts. Do you have parts that are like, gosh, I want to do it, and I want freedom. I want to be seen too. I think it was Inga saying her parts wanted to be seen, like as Anne is being this heroic. Like parts be seen. Can you relate to that? Parts of you that want to be seen too. Thank you, Anne. Hey, Zoe.
Hey, I do have to leave in 5 minutes, so I'm just gonna keep it quite brief, I guess. Just to say that I really resonate with everybody's sharing today. And while I'm, kind of sitting here listening and recognizing, yeah, I connect with that could be, that vulnerability and those difficulties of Anne. Yeah, I know that place. And then, the joys of David's, feeling that the answers are there for him, that equally touched me. And I guess the part that comes up then is it's like I don't know, a part that's kind of celebrating, oh, I'm normal. I'm just normal like everybody else, and that's such a relief. Yeah, there's like just a huge letting go and of, yeah, just relief. Okay, I'm just like everyone else. It's okay. Yeah, so that's one thing. And then in terms of the meditation, I smiled at myself because I said that I was looking for spaciousness, and then I recognized that it's actually airs, my default place. And yeah, where I guess I feel most at home and comfortable, and I noticed that earth is as well. So then that kind of, was just interesting to notice that there were others like realms and fire where I didn't feel comfortable, and I just thought, oh, that's interesting. There's something to explore there. So thanks, everybody.
Wow. Thank you, Zoe. Since we pause for a moment, can we feel the resonance in our system of Zoe's sharing? How does it resonate for us? Can we feel it? Maybe it was a frequency of vibration or resonance. The joy that was there. She spoke of the joy and spoke of the vulnerability. And she spoke of a part that's like, oh, wow, this is normal. It is okay. I'm just like everybody else. And the relief that can be there in a system when it just sees, there's this more and more of a welcoming of our humanity. As she spoke of that, did you resonate with that? Could you find that part that was like, wow, I'm just like everybody else? How did you do in receiving the gifts of Zoe? Just notice the gifts that were received here. And also, if you're exhausted, you're like, said, I can't take any more of this in. That's just good too. It's like but there are more gifts to come. All right, before we go to Inga, let me just ask us all, how are you? Just to notice what's here inside you. Oh, we can stretch like Debbie, just a little stretch. Just notice what's here. What parts are here? It's like, what's here in Inga? Like, we've got to wonder, can you find some curiosity as we go to Inga? Where's she going to take us? Notice your
Thank you. I really like these doorways, and I noticed that before. So my default is really the air. That is air and fire. The vitality, the aliveness inside. That is something that when I feel very blended with parts, that is always there. And also a little bit of earth. Some peace and groundedness. but what my parts are longing for is water, and that is something like, ooh, they're thirsty for that. It's like, it's a good analogy to see, like, they're thirsty for what they experience as a flow of love, and it's not always it is there, but it's not always easy to access. And what came up for me is, as I said before, that everything can be a doorway. It's like chant, things like being in nature, and that was like what came up when you talk about tree, like this, being in nature often for me opens up a sense of there's just one, there's just one, and this body is a sensory organ of the one. And one thing, and I'm going to shut up in a second because I know there are a lot of people here. One thing that came up when you talked about the here and now, the room, is this, or I realized recently this, well, we think of time as a continuous thing, but that is a creation of the mind. It's like the moment I look at what is real, there is just this, there's something that, there is no, it's almost like you have a film and there's just this one picture, and the moment it arises also it really falls away. It's like, it's almost like it's born, it's fresh every moment. It's so, yeah, like every moment is born fresh. That came up when you sometimes, and usually I'm in my mind, it's like, okay, there's a flow of time, but when I really look and I stop and really look at it, it's like, no, that is a creation of the mind. So, yeah.
What about that Inga's just saying, born fresh every moment? Where do you go with that for all of us? And Inga speaks of this thirst for water, her system's longing and thirst for this love, this flow of love. That's really what I once said, is this flow of love. That's really what my parts want. As you hear Inga say that, can you find parts in your system like, yes, exactly, we're thirsty too. We're thirsty too for this water, for this flow of love. And then how about this other line of Inga's that, it's always here, but it's not always so accessible. Where do you go with that? It's kind of a big deal. It's one of the big tipping points in the game when we recognize that it's here, that it doesn't go anywhere. But like Inga says, it's just not always so accessible. Any final words, Inga?
Well, I'm going to leave the rest of the time for the others. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you, Inga. Wow. So as we just take that in, the gifts from Inga today, how we resonate, how our system and parts resonate. And then before we go to Paul, just how are you? How are you? Just notice what's here, the parts, maybe an exhausted part, maybe an excited part, all of this. Maybe another part that's curious. Where's Paul? What Paul is going to share? Is he going to talk more about Rumi's field? Where is he going? And then how are you? How is beingness here? How is self? How is okayness here? All right, Paul, what you got for us? Oops, you muted.
It's been quite a show over here. I'm in Arlington, Massachusetts, looking at my computer, and there's these people, none of whom I've ever met before, except for Sid. And Sid I met once before, last Wednesday or Thursday when I first heard of Effortless IFS, and we had a really neat Zoom thing. I came back Sunday, and I'm getting way, 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 way less out of this meeting than out of the last one. And I considered leaving long ago, and I'm entertained somewhat by the different parts that are speaking up. But I have a love-hate relationship with Zoom, and that's happening right now because I'm facing real people in real rooms somewhere, and they're saying things that are very real for them in the moment. But there's like this part that almost goes, "Oh, this isn't very entertaining. Netflix could be right now." It's like these are Netflix people. Well, no, they're real people, but not. So I I made a list of the good and bad. I was, Sid, by the way, very
Before you
amused.
before you do that, Paul, I just don't
Oh,
want us to miss this.
yeah.
There's
Okay.
part of Paul's that's like, yeah, this has been okay, but it's like last time was so much better. And I'm not sure if I'm really enjoying this so much today, and I don't know, I'm getting so much from it. See if we can find that part in us. The one that's kind of the one that's disappointed, that might want something different.
I do want to acknowledge you, Sid, before I get into my socially less acceptable parts, which I'm aware of many at the moment. But I want to acknowledge you for you seem to have an incredible ability to appreciate parts. You call everything a gift. That's a very positive spin. Maybe it's not a gift to some other, but for you, it's a gift. I make you up as an IFS transformed person, and you're happy all the time. But anyway, on these calls, you're just a very, very positive, accepting force. Everything's wonderful. Everything's a gift, and let's relate to this crappy thing over here. Can you find this crappy thing in you? It's like you're very alive. It's very imbalanced. Everything's beautiful. It's like sometimes in life, I find people, I say, oh, yes, it's all unicorns and rainbows. And I'm not saying you're one of those people, but unicorns and rainbows are very nice. But in any case, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the tone you set, and also you're doing a great job of time management. And you give away these things for free. So I'm very glad to have mentioned, I plan to be there every, whatever it was, Thursday or Wednesday. I may never again be here on a Sunday, but I like that one, so I'll be there. So I wanted to be sure to acknowledge you for these many virtues you're manifesting.
Thank you.
Now, can I give you my list?
Just a second. Let me just see if everybody's with us here with what Paul's sharing, and notice the parts that arise in you. And notice if there are any parts, and it's just I have to go here, even though Paul just said, Sid, you just
Please go, please go. No, go,
always,
go, go,
you
go, man,
always
go.
say just appreciating and seeing the beauty and innocence in parts. Like, can we do that? Or especially the courage, right? It's hard. It's much easier to say, oh, I'm loving this. I'm getting a lot out of this. This is really helpful, than for it to really have the courage to speak for a part that's like, this isn't so good today. I'm not really caring for it. Like, can we just really appreciate that in the system and the parts that we're hearing in Paul, just if we can, and also to know them in ourselves. And just like Anne, who had the courage to share the vulnerability, it's like Paul that's letting these parts speak. And it's also just to share one thing about Sid. Oh, it's fascinating to watch what comes up, right? When you're like, I'm kind of disappointed today. It really didn't work for me. I like the other one better. I definitely have a part. It's like, oh my God, I screwed up. I should not have done that. It's like, I definitely have a part that comes up that says all of this. It's like, and so, but back to you, Paul. But we have Kathleen and Jack as well. But let's get it kind of quickly with your list. We'd love to hear it.
Well, let me see what's most alive. Um, I'm probably above average in sharing the negative and dark in public. And I'm often loved for this because everybody's sitting on their dark and their negative. They all want to be liked. They don't have the courage to say it. But when it's finally said, it's usually a relief. Um, well, I don't know what to say. I mean, anything I would say would be describing the past, which had some entertainment value for me. I was noticing that I was in a real realm of good and bad. Good is to sit on camera, sit and listen, pay attention, be compassionate, and care. And then there's this other part that wants to move around, get off camera, and better do this so I can move around and be free. And there's a callous part like, okay, it's another human being with a bunch of feelings. Who gives a shit? I want to get out of here. Let me do something else. And I value that part. That is a real part. And David just laughed at that. I've been seeing David. He's laughed at a number of things. I like that. And I thought Inga was an interesting person. I wondered if she had European Netherlands background. I may never see these people again. It's this Zoom bizarreness that now the world is doing Zoom all the time. And you never really see people or their bodies. So I will leave you with that complaining tone of voice.
Thank you. And so just again, the gift of all of this, like we had the gift of Anne, and we have a very different gifts expressions from Paul. What came up in your system? Was there resistance to it? Was there, oh, I would prefer if he was saying something? Did we have parts that have any resistance or judgments of anything Paul said, and just to notice those parts? And when Paul said, I'm very comfortable speaking the negative and the darkness, what does that bring into our space? Can we find that it frees the space and opens it? Wow, is it really okay to say those things? Is it really okay, just like as Anne let parts express, to speak for parts, to bring them to the light of day as well? Is that okay? What happens in your system with that? Thank you, Paul. And last question, Mary, how did you do in receiving the gifts of Paul here? How did you do with that? Okay, this is a lot we've got, but there's more. There are two more gifts underneath our tree. We've got Kathleen and Jack. And I might need to ask an indulgence to anybody who can. We might need another 5 minutes today. And so we probably will. And so before we go to Kathleen, again, just how are you? How are you? Notice what's here. Notice if there are any kind of parts that are still kind of responding to what Paul shared with us. And then notice the self that's here, the okayness, the beingness. And Kathleen, hey, how's it going?
But yeah, I want to focus what I was going to talk about to begin with. Anyway, I really enjoyed the 7 lists that you made, things, and I thought of like Ayurveda. I've had some experience with that, and you know, but it was good. Like space is definitely something that I always have wanted for a long time, and not even thinking in this perspective. First, I had problems with digestion and was doing these breathing exercises to create more space. But and the earth part, like I've had to learn, like do a lot of somatic work, and I still do, to, I guess, it's like to connect with my body more. And that's like, I know it gives me more stability that I need, but I also know that I really, like, my go-to would be space, say, or what I really want is space a lot. But the earth aspect has really helped me get grounded when I'm really, yeah.
Let me
the
just
whole tree,
let me just check
yeah.
with everyone real fast, Kathleen. How are we doing in following Kathleen here and in intimacy with what she's sharing as she's sharing her body and the way Earth has been supportive for the somatic? Can we hear that, or do we have parts that are obscuring it? Do we have parts that are coming up and it's fine? They're like, wow, I haven't eaten lunch today, or I have this going on. Do we notice our parts? And what are we able to receive in Kathleen's system? And is anything that she's sharing foreign to us? Or, I mean, can we just to dive in with her to the shared humanity? Back to you, Kathleen.
Okay, the flow was probably something I have difficulty with, and I kind of relate it with the self and then the parts. And this actually, this Zoom thing has been good for me to see more like the self and then the parts, like a more of a play with that. I feel that more. And the fire, I noticed first it was like this, like, oh, I have this fear of fire, but I know I have fire. I actually have a lot of fire, I think. But there is this fear about it at the same time, like it's dangerous, and to be, yeah, to kind of like that. That is something I would like to actually be more intimate with myself about. Yeah, and then the realms of here and the here and now, that helps me stabilize too. It's like getting into that space of like, it's just here and now, when there's no past, there's no future, then I'm okay as is, but it's usually the past and the future thoughts that, and what's the other one? Oh, the crystal, and that clarity. Yeah, that's yeah, I have more clarity than I think I have. I think a lot. But I was really I, what do I want to say? Like my heart really opened up, right away with Anne. And it was similar to the other day, really loving, really loving her, those feelings that I just so felt. And I just wanted to say, I love you, and you're fine, you're okay. Like that kind of urgency came up the way it did the other day with Debbie too. I think this wanting to protect them in some way, that, that part that I felt was hurting. But yeah, it's been a good. And then, and Paul's sharing too, this, I guess I felt defensive in a way. I'm not somebody that ignores the negative, but I am somebody that needs to actually look more toward my go-to is look to what's wrong, and it's good for me to look to what's good. I need more of that. When I come on here, I get that, and it's really helpful to me. And I don't think I'm ignoring the hard parts, because I don't. And so, in listening to him, I realized, oh, I'm intimidated now to share. I felt like I got really small about, oh, I just felt that. And yeah, and then, I had my own part that would, fight that.
Isn't that
And
fascinating? Isn't that fascinating to watch our systems, what Kathleen's describing, that a protector came up? Like, wow, is this, something got small. Is this safe? And isn't this lovely that we have parts that do that? Can we all find that, our version of that in some situation where a part comes up and then something kind of contracts a little bit to kind of stay safe? Can we, and Paul is going to be like, Sid goes again. Can we celebrate that? Can we celebrate that? And then also what Kathleen said about my system usually goes to a different place. It goes to the kind of more light and openness, and not to where Paul took us. But I want to say that maybe where Paul took us is could be the most interesting place, because they say that in this journey that we really have to welcome everything. Everything has to be welcomed and included, and I would say even celebrated. Celebrate the life that's there. Because some even say going into the heart of we're out of time to do this, but like going into the heart of darkness, into the fear, the darkness, that is where it gets so good, because eventually our system allows us to go there. It allows us to get closer to all of that. And as we get closer to that, what we end up finding, right? We hear this in our friends, that we end up seeing innocence and beauty and love is what we are, is what it is. But I mean, that seems to be the journey in going there. And lastly, what Kathleen said about the fire, like she knows there's a lot of fire here and like loves fire, but she also has fear of it. Can we relate to that? Can you find that? Some fear of this aliveness, this Shakti, some fear of it. Kathleen, we're kind of out of time. I want to save the last minutes for Jack. Any final words?
just one, because I was saying, actually, I tend to go more to the dark thoughts than the light thoughts.
Oh,
That's
I got that completely confused.
right. And that's what I like coming on here, because it brings us the light. But also I realize the dark parts are harder for me to love, for sure.
Yes.
So it is good to learn how to love, what Paul was saying.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you again, Paul. Paul's like, what do you mean? People are liking what I shared? I don't get this. All right, Jack, please. We don't want to miss Jack's, because I spent a lot of time with there's the gift of Jack. You never know what it looks like from the outside. You open it, it's like, oh my God. What you got for us, Jack?
Yeah, the 7 doorways. I like to think of them as automatic doorways, but the 7 doorways inspired a poem. A grandfather breathing openness drinking pure love, combustion in water brings life. Feet resting on the solidness, knowing the realm you are in will determine your experience.
And as we all hear this, is it possible we can include them all? Jack's poem that brings together all 7 of what he's calling the automatic doorways. Is it perhaps possible that those are all here? They're all here in us. And then, Jack, I'm also curious if there's anything else you said about the automatic doorways and also about where you started with parts to be able to see them fully and not be kind of obscured by biases or cultural biases so that they could rest more in self.
I don't think I quite got there, but there's a direction of seeing my masculine nature as a tree. Is somewhere I might want to go. Talk to the tree maybe and see what it has to say back to me.
Anything more on the automatic doorways? Automatic.
I kept thinking of the idea that Zen has of the gateless gate. Like once you go through it, you realize it wasn't, you didn't have to open it, it was always there kind of thing. Like invitation is almost like the 7 invitations. Doorways just seems like, maybe there's a little work you have to do, but doorways doesn't make it seem as effortless as I maybe think it could be, I guess. The only other thing that really came up strongly for me was the idea of blankness as a firefighter. I never really thought of it that way before. But maybe it is, I don't know.
Inga. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Let me just bring it together in closure for us. So we see the 9 squares here. Bye, Inga. As we see the 8 squares here. Just that the gift of each of us today, of what we shared. And can we just maybe just a little, like the innocence, the beauty of each of us in what we shared. It was such, thank you each of you. It was such a treat being with you, and come back and bring even more of you. I look forward to next time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.